Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner-operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to today's episode. Now, if you've been following us this year of the 2025, you'll recognize that we've been doing a lot of different types of films this year compared to what we did last year, because we want to touch on films from different subgenres and different decades to give a clearer picture of all the different types of horror films that are out there for you all to visit, or in some cases, revisit. One of the films the film we're doing tonight, I'm hoping will be a revisit for a lot of people, because I do know that this is not a highly regarded film in director John Carpenter's oeuvre of films, his filmography. It's kind of looked down upon, or it's completely forgotten. But we hope that you will have a different aspect of the film after you've listened to us talk about it. And to talk about John Carpenter's film is Nate Hill and Dave Watkins, who are going to join me on dissecting and visiting the world of Ghosts of Mars. So thank you guys for joining me today.
Thanks for having us on again.
How's it going? Ghost of Mars. Let's get into this.
So I want to, since growing up, since I originally saw this film at the theater, I had not heard a lot of things about this film, of John Carpenter's films in particular, from a lot of my friends. So I want to know exactly what were your thoughts on it when you first saw it, and how did you see it? Whether you saw it at the theater, DVD, you saw it years later after it had already been out. Nate, let's start with you. What do you think?
It's been so long since I originally saw this film. I believe I saw it in the theater. I just can't swear to it. The fact is, out of all John Carpenter's films, this is one of the few that just didn't stick in my brain too well, I'm afraid.
Yeah, this is really one of his last films too. It's the one before the last that he made, and it's from 2001. And the next film he made, which is his last film to date, is The Ward, which is in 2010. But this is really his last big budget film that he made.
Mm-hmm. Big budget. I'm sorry, yeah. I got chuckles.
Well, this film had a budget of $28 million.
For John Carpenter film, it was a big budget.
2001, that's a pretty big one for a horror film. It did bomb. It made about $14 million. So it was his previous film he did right before this one, Vampires, actually made money, but this one did not. I didn't see it when it first came out. I think that I don't know why, but I had seen every other one of John Carpenter's works, but something about it never really interested me. It was that, I think, and then the bad reviews, of course, even turned me off more. So really the first time I saw it was probably about a year ago, maybe 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And I bought the Blu-ray of it. There's a new 4K out. It just came out this month, which I have as well. But I watched about half the film. And for some reason, I wasn't hating it, but for some reason, I never finished it. And then I was like, I kept meaning to finish it, but I never did. Upon watching it for the second half for the first time, I liked the first half better than the second half. And there's a lot of problems with the second half that I've been trying to work my brain through. And I do have some solutions for the problems that I had with it. So,
well, keeping in mind that this was originally designed as a Escape from New York or Snake Plissken 3 movie, that then John Carpenter had to retool to be something more original.
Which may or may not be true, actually. There's been some arguments online about whether that's actually a rumor or not.
Yeah, I think the producer, the producer Sandy King denied it, not John Carpenter himself. Oh. But it does seem like it could be that. But it does look like there's some deniable stuff going on. But
originally, when
it has a lot of DNA. Sorry, a lot of DNA shared with Escape from New York and The Thing and Assault on Precinct 13. Those flavors are definitely in there.
I do recall that after making Escape from L.A., there was always a plan to do a third Snake Plissken film called Escape from Earth, but that never came to fruition because Escape from L.A. did not do well at the box office. They were hoping it would, but it didn't. And
right. And
that's
yeah,
probably where the rumors for this started. Because it feels so much like those. It feels mostly like Assault on Precinct 13. You can see the DNA of
yeah.
Assault on Precinct 13 in this film, which is one of the films that I absolutely love of John Carpenter's early works.
John Carpenter's the music's really good in this.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you hear that music, it starts to feel like a John Carpenter film. But this a lot of times in this movie, it doesn't feel like one at all. But when you hear that music, it does.
I think because I think since it's so close for me to Assault on Precinct 13 and not as much on Escape from New York or Escape from LA, it may not feel as much like a John Carpenter film. So, you have a lot of outrageous characters in both of the escape movies. But in Assault on Precinct 13 is very much police in precinct that's being assaulted by a gang of thugs and killers. And this one feels that way because you essentially have these cops who are being assaulted by a bunch of alien gang.
So, so I do a little world building real quick about where we're at in this film. So this takes place in was it in the far future?
Yeah, I think it was 2147. Is that right?
Yeah, 2176. But yeah, it does. It could very well have been that. It don't matter. But the atmosphere has been terraformed to kind of match the Earth a little bit, so they can walk around without and breathe the air. But it's still red, and there's a bunch of red dust. It's like being out in the desert. And they've built a city, and there's a bunch of outposts, and so they've colonized Mars, and that's kind of where we're at. And this one mining town is where the problem starts to happen.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to tell? So
yeah, whoever else was finish it. I mean, I could finish it. I figure someone else might want to talk a little bit about the plot.
The miners come across one of the, I guess, caverns, or one of the things they come across is an old civilization that they kind of open up and release these old spirits from the previous Mars tenants, who then take over
all this red dust that comes flying out.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be the spirits of all the old Mars inhabitants take over everybody that they come in contact with and make them into a hybrid.
It seems like the spirits are specific to an organism. It seems like, because, like, say, if somebody's got a spirit in them, and then no one else is getting infected by one unless that person gets killed, and then the spirit comes out and affects somebody else. So it's not like, I don't know if there's an endless number of spirits or not, but it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like someone could be infected with it unless somebody else dies. So there's, there must be old Mars aliens. Well, I guess technically the main characters are aliens in this film because they're from Earth and they're on Mars. So.
Yeah, well, I kind of saw that as I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Planet of the Vampires from Mario Bava. It's very much like that.
Right.
The astronauts land on a planet, and of course, the inhabitants of that planet decide to take over the astronauts to try and get more of the other humans infected with more of their people. The thing about this film is that all this set up with these the previous tenants of Mars and these cops who are tasked with bringing a ruthless villain. I can't remember his name now.
One fun fact I noticed about
Ice Cube plays
Desolation Williams.
Oh yeah,
they keep saying it too. They're like Desolation Williams, like trying to make him like Snake Plissken, but he's Desolation Williams.
Yeah. So they're trying to bring him back to the real civilization and colony that has not been taken over to stand trial or whatever you want to call it. But of course, shit hits the fan when the cops enter this town, which has been taken over. Destination is stuck in a jail cell to begin.
Desolation Williams.
Now that is essentially still the same setup that happens in Assault on Precinct 13. These cops are forced to drop off these ruthless villains at a precinct that's supposed to be,
All right.
And
what were you going to say, Nate? You're going to say something.
Oh, yeah,
there.
It's just an observation. In the far-off future, space colonization apparently does not involve any type of advancement in firearm technology. I mean, you have these guys 150 years from now still using 45 automatics and machine gun pistols that could have been purchased at a gun shop down the road.
Yeah,
But
it should have some like plasma beams or some shit,
I
make killing these
about
guys
that.
a lot easier,
Especially in the Mars atmosphere, you think that you need something that would actually shoot straight.
I guess what's weird about the film. Now
one thing
that's
that's weird.
yeah. Well, that's what's going on though with the plot, but the plot's not told very very well. All that setup is not really even told. You kind of have to figure it out. But the way it starts out is it's one of those where it has a flashback. Like the main character, Lieutenant Ballard, played by Natasha Henstridge, is she's basically on a train, and then she's been injured, and she's the only survivor from her group apparently. And so they're questioning her about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like what's interesting. She's an unreliable narrator because most of the time you don't see what she's talking about, but the last thing she says is clearly not the truth. So I think what we're seeing is the truth, but she might not be telling the truth. So I think everything we see on screen is really what happened, but I think she's lying. But at the same time, the character makes herself look good often when she's talking until about halfway through when the character starts making really stupid decisions. But
And not once do they ask her why such an attractive woman is working as a police officer on Mars. But I digress.
I didn't
That's
have
just
a problem with it. I like Natasha Henstridge, and I think they're lucky to get her. She's
Yeah.
for species films and stuff. But unfortunately, she does keep her clothes on the whole time.
Oh,
She did kind of in Species too. Though. I'm joking about that. I actually like her as an actress. I think she does a good job. She's pretty funny. And here she's playing a lieutenant. It's weird because here she's a lieutenant, and Jason Statham plays a sergeant who's above her. But she seems like once the commander, played by Pam Grier, is out of the picture, she seems like she's making most of the decisions, even though her rank is lower, which is odd. And but I guess we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with that. But as far as like, what do you think about it? Also, while she's telling the story, sometimes she'll encounter another character, say a doctor, and she's telling a story, and they're minors, and it does a flashback within a flashback, which is kind of hilarious. I think a lot of this, and the more I think about it, it's not to be taken serious in the least bit. I think, and that was one thing that once I started thinking about it like that, I was like, wait a minute, like this is not intended to be serious. It's like him doing all this shit is just goofy. And John Carpenter actually said that. I was reading an interview with him, and he actually was like, I don't know why people are thinking this is like a serious movie. But at the same time, it comes off to me as serious. But if you think about it not being serious, then it makes more sense.
I think it might have been. I would have appreciated more of a Big Trouble in Little China sort of vibe to it,
Right, because it doesn't let you know.
Ridiculous sense of humor to it.
Right,
Well,
it doesn't let you know that it's not serious. It's but I really I do like the build up. I like the initial approach. The soldiers coming up there. I like the team. I like the actors of the team. They're, as like Pam Grier, Jason Statham, and
I think it's Jason Statham, right?
Statham.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do like that the actors. They make all these. Yeah, they make all these characters like intentionally unlikable for some reason, and I think that's part of what John Carpenter thinks is hilarious, because you have these really unlikable characters, and most of the stuff that he does to them makes a character that should be likable unlikable.
Well,
think about Jason Statham's character. His entire purpose is that he wants to have sex with Natasha Henstridge.
Well, he also knows how to. Yeah. But he knows how to unlock locks. He's always unlocking locks and shit.
Oh yeah, he can unlock.
Yeah, he unlocks shit. She's impressed too when he unlocks stuff. You can tell. As a matter of fact, there's that one scene that you don't expect later in there where he gets her alone, and she's like, "What, really?" And then all of a sudden, she starts making out with him, and that's when
it was such a weird moment, wasn't it?
There are several weird moments. Now, after rewatching the film, there's several weird moments.
But that scene though is like it just seemed like especially because that's I think that's the scene that from her telling this. That's what's weird about it because if she's telling the story, every scene, everything that she does before that is like I'm by the book. I'm a goody two shoes officer, and suddenly he locks her in the room, and you think she's going to tell him off, or beat his ass instead of starts making out with him. But I think that is her character, and that's been her character the whole time.
Mm.
Because and that's like, but that's the part from then on. Her character's completely different than before that.
Well, keep in mind that you also, at the very, very beginning, when they're on the train, she's taking that drug. Which
Yeah,
she
yeah,
shouldn't be taking.
yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
But
A drug called Clear.
Clear.
Yes. Yeah.
right. And she's probably not telling the people that, when she's doing the interview, like, she's not like, yeah, I'm taking these drugs. And so she is a drug addict.
I think they tested her blood right at the beginning.
So they knew about it. Yeah.
Find that out, but
But there's more to that. Like, once you see that though, because it makes the character like it's a really surprising moment, really, because the guy's like Jason Statham's character is such a douchebag, and then it's like she's really gonna get with this guy, and then it's like, oh wow, okay, well, I guess you would.
Oh hey, since I just locked you in this room and we're all alone and we're probably gonna die within the next couple hours, hey, what do you say? I mean.
And of course, that moment causes a problem because that's when the officer, I'm probably gonna pronounce her name wrong too, but was it Clea Duvall or something like that?
Yeah,
Clea. Yeah, but she kills like one of the people who's infected, which releases it, and then it actually gets into Natasha Henstridge's character, the Ballard character, but she's able to fight it because of the drugs. So the drugs themselves are able to push the ghost out, but they never use that but once. But they know, from then on, they know the drugs will work, but they never use it again.
Let's all get on Clear so we can all be renewed.
Yeah.
Hey, for all we know, that was the very last pill she had.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. She probably didn't have any more, but they could. When she got back to the other station, though, they could have been like all getting high, But,
that might have been a good thing to mention, actually.
Yeah.
By the way, if you really want to protect yourself from these Martian ghosts that are possessing people and turning you into crazy cannibals, you might want to get high.
I think these are the wrong, the wrong images.
So the first time the film does something weird with the characters, and I don't know if this is a character thing or if it's like moving the plot along. So the main characters move into this location, and they're investigating, and they find all these dead bodies or people missing and stuff, and then they find a guy who's inside of like a tank or something. He's locked himself in there, and he's like kills himself, and he's infected.
Oh, yeah.
And during that scene, like Pam Grier's character takes off after somebody by herself for like, why would you do that, for one thing, which gets her killed. And then the second dumb thing that happens there is Natasha Henstridge's character wants to let the guy out, but Jason Statham's character, luckily, he's like, no, that's not a good idea. So he's kind of a voice of reason. But it's like you see like two really bad decisions at one time by the two women protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That was like where it's like before that happened, it seemed like they knew what they were doing. And then at that point, I'm like, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I get the same. When I rewatched it, I kind of noticed that too. I was like, I know Duvall's character is supposed to be kind of a rookie,
right, which makes sense for her.
But the rest of them should be like hardcore,
Yeah, but there's like another rookie too. But the rookies make sense. But you got like Pam Grier's commander character, which she also is unlikable a little bit because she's like trying to hit on Lieutenant Ballard, earlier on. And so there's like some more talk about like how she's done that before to try to like, and people get their ranks higher from like, getting in a relationship with her. So it's kind of abuse of power for Pam Grier's character, but at the same time, she seems competent enough that she's not going to make a dumb mistake, like run off after somebody without backup. But because before that, though, they actually do something which made me think they knew what they were doing more, because they find something, and then instead of like encountering it, they go get the commander and everybody else to come into the room. So that's what they always should do.
Yeah.
But that like I thought they were going to keep doing that, but then they made a real big mistake.
What was it? They found what body parts? Some kind of.
Well, they found that one girl, I think one of the shipmates. They opened it up, and she like was infected already, looking all sick and stuff. So, but that was
doing that weird hand thing that people do when they get possessed on Mars.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Mars movies, I don't think anyone's ever done a really successful one.
But The
Martian.
It kind of made me think about John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China, and his approach to it with Kurt Russell's character, where Kurt Russell is the protagonist, but he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a complete idiot, and the main character is somebody who does know what he's doing, like Dennis Dunn's character. But I think that he did this almost like an approach to this, like Ice Cube's character more knows what he's doing than anybody else, which we hadn't hardly talked about. Desolation Williams.
Well, I think this movie was very much like what he did in Vampires, where everyone has to be cool. The reason why people liked Vampires is you got cool ass characters killing vampires, very bloody.
Just a quick aside: the novel "Vampires" by John Stakely is a great book. Every horror fan should read the novel and try to forget about John Carpenter's Vampires, because I
don't know if we say forget about it. I think it's one of the better later films, but I think it didn't live quite up to what it could have done. But I don't necessarily hate Vampires. It was somewhat entertaining.
I do. I'll straight up tell you up front. I had such high hopes for Vampires based on the book, and seeing it in the theater, it was just
well, I like the first
hard to take.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
Say what? I'm sorry?
I said I like the first 40 minutes. It seemed like two different movies. The first 40 minutes was amazing. And we talked about this in a previous episode about vampires. But I just didn't like the second act of that movie at all. But it was successful. John Carpenter, if you haven't really paid attention to his career, is not known for having successful movies that make money at the theater. He has sustained a career where most of his movies don't make money, yet they're almost all cult movies. Like, people don't recognize how good his movies are until years later for some reason, and which is sad.
Yeah. Well, both Vampires and which is the film he made before this one, and this one, Ghost of Mars, they're both considered in the Western subgenre in a way. And so in both of these films, he was kind of making a Western, like science fiction or horror sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's which was some reason that was where his mind was at the time. So I don't know.
I think he does that a lot. I think that's just an aesthetic of his brain and what type of movies he makes. Thankfully, he did a couple successful ones, but for every one of the vampires, you have In Mouth of Madness, which makes no money. You have Village of the Damned that makes no money. These movies like that, but some of these are cult movies now.
Yeah. Well, I think looking at and really in The Mouth of Madness to me is his last great film. Some of the other ones after that are entertaining, but to me that's his last really good one that he made.
Oh yeah.
I would concur. Yeah.
What?
I would agree. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, he did do some great episodes for what was it, the horror anthology series? Was that
Masters of Horror?
Masters of Horror. He did some great ones for that. But I think he's a director who is now focusing on music. He's touring. He does his own albums now. He works with his son and his friend to do the scores to like the Halloween trilogy. He's got something else coming up with them as well, other than the Halloween trilogy. But if you listen to his music now, he's focused on that. And, more power to him. It's like, it was hard for him to get movies made. Like, this is not Ghost of Mars. Mars movies don't make money. Why the hell they would ever get money to make this movie is beyond me.
Right. You know what's weird to me, another weird thing about the film, and he kind of did this a little bit in Vampires, but a lot more in this one. When he's editing, he did these weird crossfades just in the middle of scenes. For instance, they're walking into a jail cell and there's a shot, and then they do a crossfade and they're across the room. And in the middle action sequences, he did it in Vampires during probably one of the better scenes when all the vampire hunters and the prostitutes get killed. Is some weird crossfades. I don't know what happened with that. It almost seems like they didn't shoot the scene right, or they had to condense it, and so they just like, okay, we're going to do some fades in this scene. I don't know.
Well, it'd be interesting. I have to listen to some commentaries on both films because John Carpenter talks a lot about his films. Yeah. So
but that's like that's one thing that is always weird to me, and especially with this, like just seeing like those edits, it's just like, what's going on with that? I don't know. I don't know if it's an intentional decision or they had to do it for some reason. So I don't know.
Interesting question. Well, the thing is, and I didn't tell everyone this at the beginning like I normally would, but when I saw this at the movies, I had read about it in Fangoria, just like a lot of horror fans had, and I knew about the connections to Assault on Precinct 13, which was one of my favorite of the early John Carpenter films, and still is one of my favorite films that he's ever done. And that was what got me into seeing the film. Plus, everybody loves Natasha Henstridge. I mean, it's the only reason why you watch Species, which I don't think is a good movie, but you watch it because of her.
It does have Ben Kingsley in it.
Yeah, that's still that's still a horrible movie.
I'm messing with you. I mean, actually, the cast is amazing. It has like Forrest Whitaker in it, and
and Alfred Molina before.
Alfred Molina, and
great cast. It's a horrible movie.
It's not as good. It's not as good as I remembered it. I saw it recently, and it was definitely not as good. It's still kind of a fun movie, but Natasha Henstridge is the best part for sure.
You know what you're going into with Species.
You do. You pretty much know what you're going into there. So it's not a very thought-provoking movie at all. But I think with these type of movies, there's a sense of not being serious but being fun.
Right.
Because if you go too serious with something like Ghost of Mars, I don't think people will enjoy it nearly as much. And the thing about John Carpenter's films is he doesn't make them really serious that often. And the madness is fun, crazy, all out there. But it's even Prince of Darkness has its fun in it with the actor. I think it's Dennis Dunn, right? I think he's there's things about his films that, I mean, he gets some amazing actors for his films. They seem to do a great work. I mean, even in this film, Ghost of Mars, the actors are fun. Like Jason Statham is always hitting on Natasha Henstridge. Pam Grier's hitting on Natasha Henstridge. Clea Duvall is probably the only one that doesn't hit on her. but
her character is called out as being, which in real life she is a lesbian. But like at one point they used to always like act like her character was a lesbian, and like in say the faculty, they would like say she's not, and then she really wouldn't be. But in this one, she really is. But there's like, but there's like a little bit of talk about it, but they never go anywhere with it. Like, they could have gone somewhere with Pam Grier's character. I thought maybe they were going to do that with it, but they.
Well, I kind of got that impression when I saw the movie, and I was like, all these great actors, and Pam Grier dies 15 minutes within the fucking movie.
Yeah. It's about 30.
And
I
it's
think.
An off-screen death at that.
Yeah.
And
right.
you think that there's like when I rewatched it, I kept thinking, is there more that was left on the cutting room floor that I actually remembered? Because this film, like you said, the weird swipes between scenes and stuff there feels like there's
one thing though about the film though is it's like has like too many endings. It seems like the film should be over and it just keeps going. Like something else will happen. Like there's like that with one scene near the end when they all get away on the train, or most of them get away, and then for some reason, Natasha Henstridge's character takes charge over Jason Statham's character, and she makes him turn the train back around to go blow them up or something, and then they all get killed.
We gotta stop these people now.
Yeah, and then
I don't care if they're a planet. We're here now. We need to set off a nuclear explosion and nip this thing in the bud.
And then, it's like, what the thing is that I mean, and I guess I don't know what it almost feels like they're trying to say something too with the characters and the way that they act, and maybe about the military making bad decisions or something like that. It almost seems like there might be some kind of political thing with that, because they go back like say blow it up, thinking it's going to stop it. Of course, it doesn't. Like these ghosts of Mars that are under the Mars under it, they're going to come back. They're going to keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, there's more of them, and I'm sure. So,
One thing about the ending, I noticed that final Martian possessed savage that Natasha Hendrich fights on the train right at the end. Is it me, or does that one particular Martian seem like an homage to Freddy Krueger? I mean, looking at him, there's just a Freddy Krueger-ness about him. He's got that metal claw. He's got this torn, sort of reddish outfit, bit of stripes on there. He's got this shaved head that's not burnt, but it's kind of reddish. I was just seeing a lot of Freddy Krueger in that guy.
I never gave it thought. If it had been Wes Craven who directed this, I would say, oh yeah, most definitely he's calling back to that. But
I don't know. Maybe Greg Nicotero, the effects guy, and actually, we should mention Greg Nicotero and a couple other big names did the effects on this film.
Well, the effects are great in this film. I mean, there's one thing that you can never say about John Carpenter films: the effects are going to suck.
To be honest, I thought the model of the train going back and forth looked kind of rickety.
I didn't think it looked rickety. I think it's supposed to look like a set, or like a.
I did start watching the movie with the director's commentary, and right off, it actually has John Carpenter and Natasha Henstridge on the commentary. I wasn't able to finish it, but they do talk about that. John Carpenter's like, he's like, I wasn't real happy. He's like, we try to make this look like a real train, but it was a model. And she was like, that was a model? And he's like, well, he's like, hopefully all the, everyone watching it is going to be, it won't be as it, will be like you and not notice it,
I always thought it was always like, it's a model. I thought it was part of the charm of this crazy Ghost of Mars movie, to be honest with you. If he was trying to be like Mission to Mars, which is trying to be dead serious, I would have like, that's kind of bad for this movie.
Yeah, John Carpenter always. I mean, that was like that. That was what they had to do back then. Which I agree. I think it did add to the charm of it, but it is. I guess it does look like a model. But
I believe this is like right on the cusp of when all filmmakers started going full hog with animation rather than model making.
Yeah. But, right. I think so too. This is like a 2001. I'm sure it was.
I lose track because you're right.
The first Spider-Man movie was the first with the Sam Raimi ones. The first one I noticed there was like a ridiculous amount of CGI and something, but we'll see what year that was.
Well, I thought you were going to say the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Well, they had to hide a lot of the bad CGI in the rain because they couldn't do everything as good as they wanted to. That's why it rains the whole movie. You can read about that and like, we're using some new shit in this movie, but we're gonna hide it in the rain.
Right.
I'd hate to see a 4K of that. It might be, you might see the seams in the 4K version.
I know. But I don't think there was any CGI in this, was there?
Well, it looked like when I think it was Clea Duvall's character touches the entrance to the cavern where the Martian dust is, and it just collapses under her hand.
Yeah.
There's also moments when Natasha Hendrich's character is taking pills from that little pendant she's wearing, and you see like the design on the pendant sort of become 3D and move around. Quick moments like that.
The first Spider-Man film was 2002, which was the next year after this. So it was right when I remember not liking I remember watching that film, the Spider-Man, the first one, and not liking the computer animation. But I probably wouldn't bother me now. But it kind of really stuck out to me at the time.
Well, because that was the first Spider-Man, and now they've gone through like 20 of them. So now now you're used to crazy CGI Spider-Man.
Right. They've improved it too, I think. Or either we've just become more accepting of it.
Become more accepting until you watch Sharknado. And less.
It's funny, it's funny when it looks fake anyway. Almost makes it funnier when it looks like that bad.
Yeah, but I think I'm saying this because we brought this film up. Big Trouble in Little China holds up extremely well because of the effects in it, whereas this film, some of it looks a little shaky.
Right.
And I'm sure some of it looked even shaky when the movie was originally made. Like there was a lot of care put in Big Trouble in Little China, and like you're noticing some cracks in the seams when we rewatch this film. And this film seems to have like we would love to sit down with John Carpenter and say, Carpenter, John, what didn't work for you on this film? Because I think we're starting to see some of it now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems like he maybe was just kind of going through the motions in a way in this and didn't give a shit about it that much. In a way, I kind of feel that a little bit with some of his later films. Anyway, he's just kind of,
I heard
he wasn't all the way there.
one story being mentioned while John Carpenter was on set. He used to go around to his crew and actors, and to lighten the mood, he would tell people, "Oh, this is the shittiest film I've ever made. We're doing a great job here.
Yeah.
Let's make a piece of shit." But
Yeah. It's a good way to bump up the morale on set. Yeah.
actually, I had a question on the director's commentary. There's this kind of odd moment when like Natasha Hendricks, Ice Cube, Jason Statham, all their group has made it to the train for the first time, but for some reason it's not working yet. And then Ice Cube says some 1980s cheesy action lines, and then he just charges back at the Martians with both automatic guns blazing and pointed back and forth like that. And he's doing this weird thing where he's got his eyes squinting and he's turning his head back and forth while shooting these guns, going like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even look like he's looking at any particular target. It just looks like he's shaking his head and squinting. And I don't know.
Well, yeah,
that was just an odd.
It looked cool back in the early 2000s.
Well, what's funny about that scene, that scene stuck out to me not for that reason. I think I was already annoyed with the scene that he made that decision for everybody and then get some people killed by doing it. It's like, why? He's like, we should have done. He says, here's what he says: he's like, we should have done what we should have done to begin with, or something. No, like, let's do what we should have done to begin with, or something like that. And turns around and just starts blasting, and everybody else is just like, what? That's when one of the rookies gets killed because of that action. And when these people get killed, like, nobody gives a shit. They don't take any responsibility for it. You know, like,
the
later
characters
on,
really weren't that well established. I mean, that first guy was kind of bland, oh yeah, that guy got killed.
Yeah,
I don't even remember his name, but
he gets killed pretty awesomely, actually. It's something that chops off his head. And, yeah, now that I mentioned, now that I'm thinking about it, that is some CGI. When the other rookie gets killed too, like, it's pretty.
No, that first rookie though, he first gets his arm cut off by one of those thrown razor things, and but he's still standing there, still trying to shoot, and he ultimately does get cut down.
But I mean, that's like a decision that, Ice Cube's character makes sense for him to make that decision. But later on, Natasha Hendricks makes a similar decision and gets everybody else killed. It's like maybe she's taken after him. He gets one person killed, and then she gets everybody killed, except for.
Well, by the time we get to the very end, she is just as bad as he is when he comes to save.
Also, while they're making these decisions, while they're running around like that, they're throwing out the cheesiest action lines you can imagine. It's like, I think at one point Ice Cube's like, the tide's rising. Let's go do what we're best at.
Yeah.
Things like that.
So that was at the end.
You're right. The tide is rising. That was at the end.
Now, it's stuff like that I think when I was watching it, it was annoying me this time. But I mean, the more I think about it, it's pretty hilarious, because I think it's intentionally hilarious, because I'm kind of like, you guys are not caring about your team. You're just getting everybody killed for no reason. Well, it's like, with the exception of like Ice Cube's character and Natasha Hendricks' character, they're fine. They know they're going to be fine because they're the main characters. So it's like, it don't matter.
Well, I think that the mentality of how the characters act are the mentality of people in the early 2000s / late 1990s, not what they would be like in the year 2047 or 75. I think that's I think Carpenter does it on purpose that way, because I think that if you tried to make it too futuristic, I don't think anyone would have any fun with the movie. And
Yeah.
I guarantee you, when I first saw this was fun. When I was younger, I saw this movie way more times than I should have. But then I haven't seen it in a good 10 years at least. Because the Blu-ray for this has been sitting on my shelf for years, and I'm not in the mood for Ghost Murder. Not in the mood for Ghost Murder. I've seen it enough. I don't need to watch it again until we do the podcast, of course.
So what was it that stuck? It's like you enjoyed it a lot when you saw it before when you were younger. Now, when you watch it this time, what was it that bothered you or that you didn't enjoy about it?
The thing is, that of most of the Carpenter's films, this one feels to me like one of the ones that is the most dated. Not only because of the dialogue, but because we're all, Mars is always in our brains, and nowadays everybody wants to go to fucking Mars and shit. And we've seen, I haven't seen The Martian yet, the one good Martian movie from what everyone tells me.
It is good. It is good.
I've seen all the bad ones.
It's a slow burn, but it's good.
They finally got it right.
Yeah.
Like Mars movies is like a curse. And for one, and for John Carpenter to attempt to do a movie called Ghost of Mars should have told him something to begin with, unless he knew that there was a potential for this to fail, just like all the other Mars movies. So you're having fun with this. I think he was hoping to try and do something like he did with Big Trouble in Little China, but all the dots were connected in Big Trouble in Little China in terms of the characters and story and everything. This one, there are a lot of holes, and we don't care about any of the supporting characters. Not one of them. Whereas in Big Trouble in Little China, we actually want to see these characters more, and we're actually really happy about them. And if they died, we'd actually feel something for these characters.
Yeah, well, you can tell that.
Statham's...
You can tell, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. You can tell he don't give a shit about the characters, the way that he treats them, and the way that they just randomly kill them off. But
Now, about to say, when Jason Statham's character died, he should have had at least like one cheesy bit of dialogue right at the end. That would have fit everything right there. He could have done something like, "I never got to have sex with Natasha," or something like that. Just one last
right, yeah.
comment.
I liked it better when they all got away on the train, though. Even but then it's like then they go back.
But they go back.
Yeah. I like that was a better ending, I guess, in a way. But at the same time, that to me that was a better ending, and then it cuts back to the Mars thing, and then it's ongoing. That would have been better, and just got rid of all the interrogation scenes. But,
I'm sure it's for runtime, and like I said, I never thought that there was much cut out of it when I originally saw it, but when I rewatched it for the podcast, it feels like there's stuff that's just missing. And it could just be because it just was a hollow film to begin with. It could have been that there's stuff that was actually cut. Who knows?
You know what's odd? Another thing odd about it is that they keep introducing new characters. Like, you got like a group of characters that they could have spent more time on, but then they keep introducing more characters that they don't do anything with. Mm-hmm. It's like they find like more survivors and then more, and it's like I don't even have to remember what happens to most of them. I guess they all just get killed at some point.
All the heads get chopped off.
But they find like they found the prisoners, and then they find the miners, and then I don't know. It just seems like there's a bunch of characters all of a sudden, and they're all
Ice Cube's people came to rescue him.
Yeah, and they all got a plan. They keep coming up with these stupid plans. It's like what are they doing? It's like at what point they all leave for no reason. I'm like, why? And then some of them get killed and they have to run back in. And then later on, it's like we need to get to the train, which makes sense. They got to get to the train, and then these Ghost of Mars people who are possessed. It's like you don't see them, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of them out of nowhere. They just all show up. You don't see them forever, and then it's like here they are.
So what we should all do is check the timeline and see if there's a writer's strike going on at the same time, so that they couldn't rewrite the script at all. They just had to go with John Carpenter's rough draft. He never had a chance to rewrite it. I was recently watching a documentary on the first Pet Cemetery, and realized that was literally the script that they had to shoot because they were going through a writer's strike, and everyone was supposed to say it was perfect.
Yeah.
Pet Sematary,
Yeah.
the Mary Lambert one. They
I thought that was great.
It was passed over. It was a script that was passed over by multiple studios who didn't want to do it, and the only reason why it got made is because there was a writer's strike, and the studios wanted a script that they didn't have to hire a writer for.
I remember reading about that. But it was good though. I mean, that's a good script.
Sorry, was that the original Pet Sematary?
Yeah,
they probably would have screwed it up had they rewritten it. Really.
Yeah. You know? So if this was a film that was like that, and this happens too. So for anyone out there listening here, it does happen where during a writer's strike, scripts are in the middle of production and they can't hire writers to rewrite anything or update anything because of a writer's strike, and so therefore a lot of these films get stuck with what they're shooting, or they can't produce a quality film because they can't hire writers to come back in and fix the shit. So you get
Transformers.
You get bad films. Now that was Michael Bay who just did a bad movie because he's a bad director.
I thought Transformers 2, the second Michael Bay one, had issues with that writer's strike itself, but
So I got some bad news for you. This the writer's strike in 2000 was from 2007 to 2008. So I don't think there was one going on in 2001.
Actually, I was hoping.
Good theory though. Good theory.
I was hoping I was going to give John Carpenter the benefit of the doubt, because think about it. Of all of those later films, this is probably the weakest one. The Ward is a better movie than this one because it was a much more contained film.
Right. It does seem like that script needed some work. It does seem like that. Yeah.
Now, when I first saw it in 2001, it didn't. I mean, I was perfectly fine with a brainless action movie with Natasha Henstridge and Ice Cube, who was like probably at the top of his game doing all kinds of action films at that time. And you got Jason Statham in there, who's an up and coming action star. I mean, Pam Grier was coming back into her own at this time too. So you have these names attached. And that's probably the reason why the movie got made, not so much of John Carpenter, except for the fact that he was coming off the success of Vampires. But
I understand that Natasha Henstridge was actually a last-minute casting decision, and originally they were going to have Courtney Love as the starring actor.
I could see that.
Mars. Which
I could see that. I could see Natasha Henstridge coming in and saving the movie.
Yeah, and she had been just working on 2 other films at the time, and she was coming into this thing exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, they had to stop their production for a week, as at least I understand, because she had just couldn't function at one point. It was getting sick too much.
Yeah, well, because she was in demand. I mean, I can't remember when Species came out, but she did that little scene action movie called Adrenaline, Fear the Rush, and she was doing a bunch of other action films at the same time. Yeah, Adrenaline, no one remembers it. It was with Christopher Lambert and her.
I remember one she did with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I couldn't tell you the name of that one.
Is that Maximum Risk? I think it was.
Maybe.
But she was in demand. So it was probably a coup for the production to get her as a star for Ghost of Mars, and probably they thought they could sell it simply with her name.
It's actually interesting how they got her. What happened was her boyfriend at the time is one of the other actors in the film, and he suggested her to John Carpenter. He's like, my girlfriend is Natasha Henstridge. She's pretty good. Let's see if she wants to do it. And he's talking to her about it on the commentary, and she's like, "Yeah, that's how I get all my roles. He hooks me up."
You remember which actor? I guess it must have been one of the bland ones that people.
I don't know. I was trying to figure out what character he plays. He actually is billed in the opening credits, like pretty far into it, but he must be one of the. He says Commander something. I don't know. I tried to look it up on Google. I put the name of the character in, and it wouldn't pull up anything, so I'm not entirely sure. He could be one of the bad guys too, because those bad guys are, there's a bunch of extra.
There's a bunch of them.
Because there's like the people who are the miners, and then there's the people who are at the station to begin with, who get turned into monsters. So he's probably one of the monsters.
And there's the one guy who plays the buff Marilyn Manson type.
Yeah,
running around. He's
yeah.
apparently
Maybe,
the
maybe
leader of
that
the
guy.
monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably not him, but but it says yeah, he says it's commander something when you look at it. So he's probably not one of the miners. He's probably one of the other characters that was there. Or it could be a character in the I don't know who he is.
He could
I
be
don't
a
know.
character in the opening sequence.
I tried to figure it out, but yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be one of them.
Could
So
be Clea Duvall for all we know.
Yeah, yeah.
question for you all: what did you think of KMB's effects in this film and the makeup on the actual Martians or the humans who have been taken over by the Martians?
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought it looked good. I don't know if it was necessarily inspired looking, but it looked kind of interesting.
I know a lot of people like the look of the possessed Martians and the whole body piercings and alterations with the shaved teeth and all. Honestly, I was surprised that there was such a professional team behind the Martians, because my impression here was that these could have been the same savages as several other post-apocalyptic films. I mean, these guys could have looked at home in a Doomsday or even Mad Max, frankly.
Which Doomsday is a lot more fun than this film, really. It reminds me of this. Doomsday happened later, but Doomsday. This reminds me of Mad Max, or the way that they look. It reminds me of Mad Max or Doomsday, or
Same here.
yeah.
That's why I was trying to get to.
But even Escape from New York, they kind of remind me of that, But
So
I don't know. I mean, I think that they're very underdeveloped. It would have been nice if they focused on some more specific ones instead of having. I mean, you needed the group, but it almost seemed like they needed a little bit more focus on to make them scary. They could have been more scary, I think, because they look kind of
needed
scary.
something to make them look more unique. Something that would be special for Ghost of Mars that would separate them from other films. I don't know, maybe like the effect of getting possessed by this dust could have made boils or their skin peel away or something like that. And it seems like there could have been an opportunity to go more Hellraiser. And
they kind of look a little bit like Hellraiser too.
Yeah, a bit.
They do, but I was actually hoping that they'd do something like as crazy as what the KMB did for In the Mouth of Madness, some of the stuff that they did in there. This one, like Mad Max is the first thing that comes to mind when I saw this when I was a young kid, and it still is now. I saw these as more like a post-apocalyptic world with a bunch of case. Yeah, I didn't really. I never got the sense of Martian.
Right. Yeah. They're just like rabid humans almost. But I don't know why they bothered to do piercings. I mean, what's up with that?
I don't know.
Where do they even get the earrings from?
Looked like they were just grabbing random tools and pieces of metal wherever they.
Yeah, it's. So apparently the Martians before knew how to make earrings. That was their thing, I guess. And
apparently the mining equipment on Mars involves a lot of buzzsaws, because they had buzzsaws flying out the wazoo in this thing. I mean, that seems like to be their go-to weapon.
Yeah.
Okay. I love K&B effects, and they did a lot of great things with some of the later Carpenter films, as much as any other horror film that they put their little.
But even on this though, I'm sure this was a lot of work.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of people to make up for this. Even if it does feel a little uninspired and it feels similar to other films, I think that they clearly put a lot of work into the makeup on most, especially the hero ones of them.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
I'm gonna guess this is not one of the films that they're gonna keep the poster of up on their office. All right, any trophies like that probably, but.
Oh my god! All right, gentlemen, are there any other things you want to talk about with John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars?
I got one thing I was holding back on.
Don't hold back.
Yeah. I always I gotta hold something back for when you ask that question. But no, this scene I actually liked. It was so like out of the blue. There was like one of the guys from the miners, like one of Ice Cube's guys and he starts taking some drugs, and then they're trying to prepare to fight some people, and he's like, and one girl has a can. It has like a can of like, something she wants to open. He picks up a big knife, and he's like, "Let me show you how to open this thing." And he goes to cut it, and he actually cuts his finger off, and there's like blood spray. That's it's inspired right there.
That's
It's
right.
like-
Where did that even come from? I mean, there's
that's
point to that, but
but
I
it
had
was-
forgotten about that. You're
Yeah,
right.
but it was just so, and it was so gross. All this, like, I mean, I just, Phil, he actually cuts his own thumb off, and they're all just laughing at him. And that was great. It was just, it was like that was just out of blue. There've been more moments like that.
okay, we should like make note that the reason they're laughing at it is because this one particular character has been like breathing in this other drug that they state at one point it turns your brain into Swiss cheese, I believe. But he's really into it. And right before he chops off the end of this can of food so they can turn it into a bomb, he takes one big puff. He raises his machete. He brings it down. And then he like brings up his hand and a can of food. And it's just like his hand is now spurting blood from where the thumb used to be.
Yeah.
And then he faints dead away.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That was awesome though. That really was. And there was like no reason for it, but it was just hilarious. And I wish there had been more of that in there throughout, in some
Well, that's
That
why
guy should have been like cutting a finger off every other scene. That might have been.
but not exactly the same, but there's little touches like that, and it's just so
it brings
random.
fun in the film.
Yeah.
Which would be the opposite of like vampires, in which James Woods was. The movie was fun, but James Woods is like dead serious almost the whole film.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's a serious vampire
I
hunter.
think, I think the film just needed someone like that, and you think you might have that in Natasha Henstridge and Ice Cube. Anything else you'd like to say about this film? You, Nate?
This is the film Jason Statham did right before it seemed like he became a big action star, and you gotta wonder what things might have worked out differently if he had the Ice Cube role rather than Ice Cube.
Yeah, but that was the role he was kind of originally cast in, from what I was reading about it, and they needed a bigger name because he wasn't really that well known yet at that point. So.
Yeah, let's say I can't remember when this came out versus when The One came out, is where he's a co-star on there, but he still hadn't had that big status yet.
Right, but his character's got a lot of screen time in this film, really, and he survives almost to the end. He survives like past 2 endings, and during the 3rd ending, he gets killed.
All right,
This didn't survive long enough to make it with Natasha, though.
Yeah, no.
All right, is that it for you, Nate?
I like almost everything John Carpenter has done, but this is one of the films I just didn't care for myself. I found this rewatch to be kind of bland, to be honest, compared to a lot of things I've been watching. But
for me, I think this film, more so than a lot of his other films, has not aged nearly as well as even like. I think this one just is a product of its time. I mean, I can watch Escape from New York, and it's a product of its time, but it still is a really great movie. And I think we're past the year that it was actually supposed to take place during. I think there's a lot more fun to be had in Escape from LA than there is to be had in this film. And we all know how crazy Escape from LA actually was.
Right, yeah. It's actually pretty entertaining, that one.
Yeah,
it got some bad like CGI in it, but it's pretty entertaining.
But if you had that type of entertainment in this film, it would have carried it further, in my opinion. So we're at the time, guys, where we're going to rate the movie. So we do 1 star as being god awful horrible, and then 5 stars as being the epitome of Oscar worthy. So Nate, we're going to take you up first. What do you think you will give this film now?
I'm afraid the movie during this most recent watch of it just did not move me in any particular direction. I was fine watching it. I wasn't particularly against it. I wasn't particularly into it. I don't know. Maybe my soul is just dying inside, but it just didn't do anything at all for me. So I would give this a firm average on a scale of 1 to 5.
Average? What is your average? A 2 or 3 or what?
2.5-ish to 3. Let's put it that way.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I feel about the same. Probably 2.5 stars. I think if I watched it 2 more times, I might like it better. But I feel like it's one that it's so annoying what the characters do and just the way that it's plotted. But the more I think about it, I'm like, he had to have done that on purpose. How badly that is plotted and the dumb mistakes that they make. And it's like, I mean, the question is, to me, my first impression is they're just trying to get from one scene to the next with plot points to, because you can't just have the characters not doing anything, but they're making really bad decisions. But maybe that's part of it. The more I was thinking about it, maybe he's trying to make fun of I guess police or army people or something and making bad decisions. But it's right now 2.5. It could lean towards the 3, but I don't think I could go over 3 with it.
You have to do 3 more viewings of this film in order to absorb just what it is.
But I think if you watch this thing 3 times in a row, your ratings are going to go down or up. Just sit there all day and just watch this film on repeat like it's a Christmas story on Christmas,
Oh, actually, let me come back to my rating real quick. I'll say this is a really bland, average film with great music to it. The music did help a lot.
Well, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I would give it a 3. It used to have a higher rating for me, but of this, the score for this, I've listened to a billion times. The movie itself has gone down in quality for me. It has aged poorly. The movie itself has aged poorly, but the score has never aged poorly for me.
The movie is very ambitious, and I think that's kind of what a little bit of the problem is, because of it seemed like they didn't have the budget for what they're trying to do a little bit.
I'd have to listen to some commentaries to figure that one out, because I'm usually very generous with a John Carpenter film.
Yeah,
I tend to watch all of his films, with the exception of The Ward. Actually, I've not rewatched The Ward yet. Now that I think about it, yeah. But I'm usually very forgiving of some of the aspects of his films because I don't see too many bad aspects. I just didn't care for vampires, but I have a greater appreciation having not watched it since it originally came out. Yeah. This film, my appreciation went down because I think I forgave a lot of stuff when I saw it in 2001 versus me seeing it now.
They may not have had the budget to reach the ambitions, but damn it, they could spare a couple bucks to cut off a thumb.
Yeah.
God bless them for that.
I think it's like that's the world building. I would have liked to have seen that's one thing about the beginning of the film. It doesn't. You're basically throws you into Mars without really showing you Mars. You just kind of get an idea a little bit about it. Like they say there's a city on Mars, but you don't quite see the city. It would have been nice to have seen it, but they would have. A few years later, they could have shown it, but they were this. I don't think the CGI was quite there yet.
Well, that's one of the things I think that if Carpenter was revisited, it'd be a different type of film in this day and age. Back then, he is, in a sense, is an independent, small-time filmmaker who's making a big budget film.
Well, he did make Escape from L.A. look pretty big in comparison.
I have to remember how much that cost, because at the time that was his most expensive film. If I
right, and he considers that to be an improvement over Escape from L.A. He's like, this is Escape from L.A. Escape from L.A. if I had a bigger budget for it. So.
Yeah, Escape from L.A. is still a much more fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
But thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on Conversations in Horror to discuss John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars. For everyone out there listening to this podcast, we have tackled many of John Carpenter's films previously, so make sure to check out some of those other podcasts. And we hope to tackle some more this year. So we hope that you'll join us every Wednesday at 8 a.m. for a brand new episode of our show. Make sure to check out previous episodes. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all those fun things that you do with podcasts, because we will be back with more Conversations in Horror. From everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.